Hello, I think we can start. We will record this video to YouTube. This video will be in YouTube. If someone else want to watch it, we will put it in YouTube in the next days. Um, Hello, my name is Jose Luis Arrieta. I would like to introduce myself first. I am in charge of the commercial area in PayHuman Group, and I would like to give you more idea about PayHuman Group, who's PayHuman Group, and why we are talking about payroll in Mexico. Well, because we are a Mexican provider. We are a company specialized in human resources, but mainly in payroll services. We have presence in Mexico and Colombia, and we have more than 25 years of experience processing payrolls of the best global companies in Mexico. Since a couple of months, well, I can say the last year, we have the presence in Colombia also with huge companies around the world. We will start with this Mexican payroll overview. I would like to say that it's, as the title says, it's an overview where may not be able to process a payroll calculation after this meeting, but we will have the basis to review or to be able to have an idea about Mexican payroll. Okay, Mexican payroll is one of the most complicated in Latin America. We can say that because we have the experience to do this kind of calculations about Mexico and Colombia, and also we have the experience in other countries. So that's why we are saying that. In this talk, as I mentioned, we have these general concepts. We will review some laws, some concepts, some considerations, and as I mentioned, it's just to better understand the general basis. If you have knowledge about Mexican payroll, this talk it could be a little bit basic for you, but it's also for practice to your English. Well, the main laws, we will start with this because we try to understand um, what kind of laws we have here in Mexico related to the payroll. And so we have some important laws in Mexico. The main law that we have here is the Mexican labor law. We can say that is Ley Federal del Trabajo. This is the main law. It's we will go into a little bit deeply in each one. We have the income tax law. Also, we have the social security law. And the last one, the payroll state tax law. Why we have a state tax law related to the payroll? Well, because here in Mexico, we need to pay an state tax for each employee we have, for each payment related to the payroll, we have to pay this state tax, and it's a different for each state. Okay. For the Mexican labor law, what is it? As I mentioned, it is the federal law over working conditions. So in this law, we can find something like the contracts, like the terminations, how we need to do it, the labor relations, the journey, the salary, the vacations, profit sharing. That is something that we are going to a little bit deeply in the next slides. Overtime payment and different concepts of different things that we need to consider here in Mexico. Okay, the income tax law. This is the federal law related to the income, but who is for what kind of people is mandatory this law? Mexican people that it's located in the country, foreign people located in the country, and also for foreign people that receive income from work done in Mexico. What does it regulate? This law regulates the different taxes for the income. It's just for that. If you receive money from some work done in Mexico, you need to pay tax. It's just that. The Social Security law, it's over the Social Security contributions, and this is related to the payments that we need to give for each employee according to the nature of the benefit that we pay to the employee. And also, as I mentioned, we have the payroll estate tax law. Um, as I mentioned before, the local law, we have different laws for each state. It's not the same amount that we need to pay. It's depending on the state that we have employees. We need to pay a different amount. Sometimes it's a little bit the same, or in some states it's the same, but each state have their own conditions for this local contribution. And we are going through entities. We have some entities that we need to consider as important in Mexico. The first one, the SAT, is the Federal Tax Authority. The AIMS, as I said before, is we have a law, but also is an entity, the Mexican Social Security Institute. Also, we have Infonavit. Infonavit is something that here in Mexico, it's mandatory. It's if you are registered in Mexico in the Social Security, you have this benefit that is housing loans. You can ask for this kind of benefit, and also you will receive the loan, and the deduction comes from the company, and the company will pay it to the Infonavit. Also, the Secretary of Labor and Social Security. This secretary is more related to the relationships between the employee and the company. And so if we have some trouble or some situations, this secretary is in charge of agree between the both parties. And Secretary of Finanzas is the treasury. It's focused on, as I mentioned before, the state tax. It's more related to that. And now we are going to talk about a little bit about the payroll, mainly the payroll, the benefits that we need to give to our employees. The federal labor law mentions minimum benefits to all the employees must receive. The three of them are the main, which is the vacations. We have a new table in Mexico since 12 days per anniversary, increasing 2 days per year until the 5th year. We have also to give to the employees vacation bonus, which is 25% of vacation days, and is paid on the anniversary. And also we have Christmas bonus, which is 15 days, and it's paid in December before the 20th. So these three benefits are the main benefit that we need to consider to the employees. But also we can say that it's not like a minimum benefit, but it's something that we need to consider is the profit sharing. Profit sharing has like special considerations that we need to review the federal labor law, because it's basically it's 10% of the total profit is divided depending on the days worked and the salary. But we need to consider some points. We are not going to through deeply in this benefit because it's a little bit complicated. But if you are an e-company, and you may not have the responsibility to pay it in the first 2 years, but it's something that we need to review a little bit more deeply. And also for Christmas bonus, we have a proposal to increase this Christmas bonus to 30 days, and we think that is something that will be accepted in the next days. So it may change in the future. To the vacations. We have a reform the last 2022 in December that was approved that increased the vacation days. In the past, we used to have 6 days for the first year. Now, with this reform is the changes to 12 days and increasing 2 days per year. We have the table that we need to consider. Also remember that here And this table or this benefit, it's the minimum benefit that we need to give to the employees. We can consider more, and also for some companies that they want to create this kind of loyalty or something like that, they are giving more days as a plus to give those to the employees like something better. And also, we have some additional benefits that we can consider here in Mexico. So the most common benefit that we are with that we have the experience for our clients here in Mexico. Some of them are, for example, grocery coupons. We have here some considerations that we need to see, but we have also restaurant coupons, saving fund, major medical insurance, and life insurance. We have here like the limits and the way we have to pay it, but it depending on the amount that we want to give. We have some rules in the law. And also, of course, we can consider for some positions or some profiles some other benefits such as allowance, car allowance, house allowance, gas coupons, and other kind of benefits here in Mexico. Not common, but the most common benefits as a plus are these benefits that I mentioned. We'll go to the next slide. We don't have any question, Julian? No. Okay, thank you. Okay, now employer contributions. So this is something really important for the company. When we are trying to arrive to Mexico, some things that we want to consider are what kind of benefits do I need to give to the employees, but also what kind of contribution do I need to pay? How much this employee will cost me? And what we need to consider are this. First of all is Social Security. As you remember, we have the Social Security, the institute, the Mexican Institute of Social Security. So we need to pay it. This contribution is for both parties. It's from the employee and it's from the employer. So we need to consider it as a deduction, as also as a contribution. This contribution, it's calculated based on the salaries. We are not going to through deeply in this benefit or this contribution because it's something a little bit complicated to determine. But we will go to we will see an example. But this contribution is the frequency is monthly. We have to pay it, and this contribution also it's divided for different ways or different concepts, but we need to pay it monthly on a monthly basis. Also, the Infonavit, as I mentioned, it's not just a loan. It's not just something that I request to the Infonavit, to the entity, and I request a loan, and that's it. Also, it's a contribution because my responsibility as a company is to give to the employees this contribution. We will pay 5% over the total income of the employee. It means if I earn as an employee 10,000 pesos, my company will pay the 5% over my income to the Infonavit. What if I don't want to ask or request a loan to this entity? It doesn't matter. The money it's in your account, so to speak. If we can say that, we will have this money when we go to the retirement. And this contribution is paid by monthly. Also, we need to consider the retirement. It's also calculated based on the salaries. We will see a table. We are not to explain this table because it's a little bit complicated, but the retirement is paid also by monthly. And as I mentioned, sometimes the state tax also is depending on the state where you have employees. For example, in Mexico City, you need to consider 3% over the total income. Okay, and for Social Security, we have to say something really important. We have a limit related to the employee salary. It means If the employee earns more than 81,000 pesos, the amount or the contribution, it would be the same. It means if I earned 100,000 pesos, the contribution will be the same. We have this limit because the Social Security says until here, the contribution will be the same. It doesn't matter if you are earning 500,000 pesos or 1 million pesos, it doesn't matter. The contribution for Social Security, it will be the same. If you want to see, if you want to consider, for example, 10,000, 20,000 or something like that, we need to calculate it based on a table, and we need to do the payroll calculation. And this is the retirement table. As I mentioned, we are not going to go deeply in this table because it's a little bit complicated. But we have some percentages related to the salary. As you can see here, we have some points that we need to consider that are the measurement ways to do it is the minimum salary and the UMA. We will have a glossary after the presentation, but UMA are the measurement unit that we use in Mexico. It's for this kind of calculation that we need to consider. And as you can see here, as a point, a real important point, it has been changed according to the percentage increasing year by year, up to 11.87%. Why? We need to consider something very important here in Mexico. For the retirement, we have two ways to do it. For people that started working before the 97, they will receive a pension paid by the Social Security. But all the people that are working or that started working after 97, we will receive the money that we are collecting from the company for this contribution. So that's why the Social Security and the government says it would be a little bit unfair for you because you won't have a pension retirement payment. You will receive your money, and with that money, you will decide if you want to hire a financial pension or something like that. So that's why the government says, okay, I'm going to help you in order to increase your retirement contribution. So that's why this contribution is increasing year by year. Also, we need to consider in this is more for employees, what kind of perceptions and deductions you will see on your pay slips. And the main are this one, salary, transportation, grocery and restaurant coupons are like perceptions, saving fund, Christmas bonus, vacation bonus, Sunday bonus, and holidays bonus. For deductions, regularly you will see the tax income. It is something that is paid by the employee. We will, as a company, we will retain this tax income and we will pay it. Social Security employee contribution, because as I mentioned before, this is a contribution that is from both parties, and so that's why as an employee we need to consider it. Also, saving fund, it would be as a perception and as a deduction, because saving fund is something also like the Social Security. It's from both parties, employer and employee. And also you will see in your deductions the loans. In Fonacot, we will have in the glossary in Fonacot, but I can a little bit give you a little bit explanation about it. In Fonacot, it's a personal loan. It's more or less like the Infonavit, but it's a personal loans that we can request for this entity. It's a government entity. And here we have, I think, the most important thing that we can see in this presentation, that is the payroll example. If you want to imagine how much money do I need to pay to an employee, or how much money this employee will cost me as a company, here we can have like an idea about it. As you can see here, the salary it's the deduction that you will see as an employee will be Social Security. In this case, it's a salary, or it's a really basic example where we are considering just Social Security and income tax. And as an employee, I can see my net salary in this example. We are considering 10,000 pesos, the Social Security discount from the employee and the income tax, and we will receive as an employee net salary around 90,000 pesos, more or less. And also, as an employer, as a company, we need to consider those contributions that we review in the last slides. Social Security is something that we need to pay as a contribution. Also, Infonavit, which is the 5%, retirement, and also state tax. And if I want to imagine how much money do I need to pay to the entities, we need to consider more or less. This is a tip or an advice if we want to imagine how much money will cost me a certain employee. We need to consider more or less 30% more of the salary that I want to give them. As you can see here, if someone is earning 10,000 pesos, we may consider like a 30% more that it will cost me this employee. So this is something really important, because sometimes we are trying to arrive to Mexico and we are trying to imagine how much money do we need to pay to the entities, to the government, and sometimes we don't know, and we can, it's not a specific amount, but we can imagine and we could consider something like that. And if you are trying to have a specific amount, it would be a little bit difficult, because as I mentioned before, the Social Security is calculated by a table, but also you can consider that 30 or 40%. If you want to be more comfortable with the amount, you can consider 30% more of the salary that you want to give to the employees. Also, you need to consider that if you want to give to the employees additional benefits like saving fund, the grocery coupons, the restaurant coupons, gas coupons, and something like that, you need to add this amount to the total that you want to consider. And also, the why the Mexican payroll is complicated is because for those additional benefits, we need to calculate how much of this benefit will be taxable and how much will be not taxable. So that's why we need to consider that if you want to imagine giving saving fund or something like that, we can imagine it, but you need to add this 30 or 40% over the salary that you want to give. Okay. And we have some payroll consideration that it's not, as I mentioned, we are not be able to process a payroll or to do a payroll calculation so specific, but we can imagine some things that if we want to review something here in Mexico, if we want to consider something about I don't know if we have a payroll provider here in Mexico, or if we have the idea to arrive to Mexico, we can consider some points like this. And here, considering workday, why we consider that? Because I think it's really important to have the idea that it's different to other countries. Because, for example, something that it happens to us, and it's constantly, is that sometimes when we are talking with US people, they think that here in Mexico, the workday it's working like them by hours. If you work 3 hours, you will receive the payment for 3 hours. And here in Mexico, we need to consider this. We have 3 types of work days, and it's depending on the hours and of the period of time that you are working in your company. So the first one is the daytime. It's where we can say like it's you if you are starting working in the morning. It's a daytime, and it runs from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. and it has the length 8 hours. It's just like your work day is like the time that you can work here in Mexico. Sometimes it's common that by the contract you consider, for example, that you are working from the most common here for the offices, for example, it's from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. And sometimes you can say, okay, but we have 9 hours, and it's something common that we consider 1 hour to have your meal or to eat something. So in this daytime, we need to consider 8 hours as the maximum length. And also we have this kind of this type of period of work is nocturnal, and it runs from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. If you are working from this period of time, you should work until 7 hours, just 7 hours, in order to consider it as a nocturnal period of time. And also we have a combination here is mixed, and it considers time periods of day and night. And we need to consider, provided that the night period is less than 3.5 hours in the night, and since if it includes 3.5 hours more, it will consider a night shift. It means we can consider 3.5 hours at night, for example, from, I don't know, 2 a.m. 2 a.m. To 6 a.m. We need to consider that it will be nocturnal, because the rule says that mixed period of time is just you need to consider just 3.5 hours. So if you're working from 4 a.m. to, I don't know, 8 a.m., it's a mixed period of time. Also, we need to consider something really important here in Mexico, that we have holidays like any other country. But we have a special consideration here, that we need to consider a holiday payment. And it's most common for companies that are in retail or factories or something like that, that they have to work in these holidays. Here we have the table that the holidays in Mexico, but also we need to consider the payment. And as we can see here, the Article 75 of the federal law establishes that workers will have the right to receive a double payment of their salary for the day of rest work. This payment will be independent of the salary that corresponds to them for that day. So it means if I work at January 1st, I need to receive a payment for this day worked. And also, here we have the list. As you can see, we don't have a lot of days as a holiday days here in Mexico. We have January 1st, we have in February, we have on March, May, September, November, and also October for each 6 years, and December are the most common. Some other payroll considerations and related to the payment and the work days. We need to consider if we are working on Sundays, we need to consider a payment. And as we can see here, the federal labor law determines that the Mexican workforce has the right to receive additional financial compensation when they work on Sundays. It's not common that we are working on Sundays. That's why the law says, okay, if you are working on Sundays, you need to receive an extra payment, and it's equivalent to 25% of what they receive on an ordinary workday. So we need to consider that. As I mentioned before, this is something more common to stores, to retail, restaurant, and something like that, but we need to consider it. And also something really important here in Mexico are overtime. Overtime is most common for people that are operative positions, people that are working on factories. Basically, we have a title for those people are blue collars. Sometimes we are calling like that because they are operative positions. And overtime, it's not something common to pay. It's something that we can agree with the employees as a company, but overtime is not common to pay to white collars or people that are in the staff and in an office, because sometimes obviously we have to work more period of time, 2 hours, or we need to stay in the office 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, it doesn't matter. But if we don't have this kind of policy of overtime, um, we might not to pay it. It's something that we need to agree as a company and as an employee, but sometimes it's not common to staff people or white collars. It's something more related to the factories, to blue collars and operative positions. So that's why we need to consider it. And the federal law establishes that workday is the time during which the worker is at the disposal of the employer to provide his or her work. And also, if we want to state at the company, and we need to consider, for example, it's something common in factories. I need to replace another coworker because he's or she is sick, and I need to stay working, and that's why we need to consider overtime. But for this overtime, we need to consider something really important. For payment purposes, the first 9 hours are considered double hours. So um, remember this because it's something really, really important. Sometimes, as a company, we're trying to do this calculation, but we have our own rules about the overtime. But the law is specific in this part. The first nine hours are considered double hours, and the subsequent hours performed in the same work week, it's work week, are considered triple hours, and they are only allowed 3 times a week. So I have an example here. Sometimes the company says you work overtime 9 hours, just one day you cover a coworker, and you will receive double hours. No, it's a mistake. As you can see, the law says 3 times. It's a rule that we here in Mexico we call the 3 by 3, and it's allowed 3 times a week, 3 hours per day. So in this example, for example, I have Monday, I have worked for overtime 4 hours, Wednesday 2 hours, and Thursday 2 hours. In this case, the double hours, as the law mentioned, we can say that the double hours in Monday, for example, are 3 because, as the law mentions, I have allowed just 3 hours per day. So 3 hours are double, and 1 hour is triple. And the next one are into the law are double hours. So if we want to work more than those hours, if we want to consider 20 hours or something like that, we need to consider this rule. And as I mentioned, this rule here in Mexico is called 3 by 3, which is 3 hours per day, 3 times a week. Okay. And we have a payroll glossary. I don't want to better explain everything, but I just want you have an idea about some points that we have reviewed in this talk. As I mentioned, the UMA is a unit of measurement used in Mexico. It's something used for payroll executives. It's something really common, and it's changing each year. So we need to be updating the systems, and we need to be updating all the knowledge that we have. Also, the minimum salary, it's used here for some calculations, and we have different amounts. For example, in the border zone, we have around 400 Mexican pesos, and for the rest of the country, we have 200 pesos, more or less. We have the state tax, as I mentioned, is paid by each state in Mexico. It's derived from the payroll payments. And also I mentioned the Christmas bonus, the vacation bonus, the IMSS, that is the Social Security entity. In this part, for example, the vacation bonus, something that I didn't mention is this is a payment made to the employees for the anniversary completed. So it means the rule could be or should be that if I have my anniversary in June, I had to receive my vacation bonus. But sometimes something that is really important is sometimes each company has their own rules, and they decided sometimes that I want to give the vacation bonus for all the people on January, for example, and something that it's making more complicated the payroll, but it's something that you can decide. Remember that in the federal law, we establishes the minimum benefits and we establishes some points. But if we want to give more, if we want to change something that we can't consider is less than the federal law mentions. So that's why we need to say that. Social Security, we said we already mentioned what is. Infonavit, Infonacot, as I mentioned, Infonacot is a government entity where employees can request personal loans after a certain time working. Infonavit and Infonacot are entities that are requesting some period of time working to the employees. It means if I'm starting working, for example, I am just working, I don't know, I have 20 years old and I'm start working in a company. I need to wait some period of time to request or to have this benefit, to have the right to request this benefit in Infonavit. And for Infonacot is the same. If I have the company here in Mexico, I need to register into the Infonavit and also into the Infonacot as a company. But for example, in Infonacot, we are not going through deeply in this part, but if one just if I can say something is Infonacot, if you are a new company, it could be something that you don't have to do at the beginning because the law mentions that if you are a new company, you can wait 2 years, but after that you need to register because it's by law. But if you're a new company, you may not. So something that you need to review. So for to be in order to the law as a company, you need to be registered in Social Security, that is the IMSS. You need to be registered in Infonavit. You need to be registered in Infonacot, and you need to be registered in the state tax and the treasury. Also, this is for something related to the payroll, but also you need to have your power of attorney, your registration into the tax authority. You need to have your tax ID. This is something more corporative, but for something related, if you want to hire people, you need to be registered in those entities: state tax, IMSS, Infonavit, Infonacot. And also we have, for example, here the income tax, that is direct tax that is applied to the income to the employees. I already mentioned the state tax and the profit sharing. The profit sharing is something that you can ask. It will be a little bit complicated, but it's the main rule is something that I mentioned. It's the 10% from my profit as a company should be divided or should be paid to the employees. And something that you need to consider also, if you need to review, for example, that if you're in a company or what kind of company you are, because the law establishes that some companies may not be paying that, but for most of the companies here in Mexico, they need to pay the profit sharing, and it's paid. The deadline is May 30. It doesn't mean that you have this obligation, but is something that you need to review. But the profit sharing is something that all the employees are waiting for. So It's something really, really important to consider. And we have a special rule and a special calculation about it because we need to consider how much employees are working, the days that they have worked, and also the salaries. The 10% is divided in two parts. The first part is calculated by the salaries of the employees. It means if I earn more money, I will receive more money than someone that is earning less money. And also the other part is divided related to the days that they have worked. It's a calculation a little bit complicated, but something that if you're hiring a payroll provider, they have to know, and also if you have a payroll executive, they have to know. But it's something really important that you need to consider here in Mexico, the profit sharing. And I think we have finished. This is, as I mentioned, this is an overview. This is not something really complicated. We won't be able to do a payroll calculation, but with this information, we have the knowledge to review something, to imagine, see if I want to hire some employees, imagine how much money will cost those employees, what kind of contributions we need to do, what kind of entities we need to be registered on, because we need to consider that Mexico, it's a little bit complicated. So that's why we consider that to have a payroll provider is really important, because when we are trying to register, for example, into Social Security, it could be a little bit complicated, because here we have very special people into the entity. So that's why we consider that if you have a payroll provider or someone that is supporting you with this, it could be better, it could be easier. So that's why PayHuman Group it's a good company for this kind of services. So I think we don't have any question, right, Julian?
No, I don't know
Okay.
if somebody have any question. I think no.
Okay. Also, we can say that we will have this video on YouTube. So if you want to watch it again, if you don't have the opportunity to review it or to join the meeting, you will see it on YouTube. And we have here our webpage. You can request anything. We have the social media, and well, we will be depending on. Thank you for your time. We will see you again with another course and with another training. If we can say something, we have a lot of trainings. In the future, we will have other kind of trainings about human resources, about payroll, about also Colombian payroll. If you can, or if you want to go to YouTube, we have there our course about Colombian payroll. So it is something really interesting. Thank you for your time. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you to Jose.